Episode 116. Today we discuss game recaps, spring training updates, and preview the spring breakout game with Anthony Murphy. You're listening to the Bucko Banter podcast, brought to you by the Just Baseball Media Network. Cue the music.
Rockin' 101, she compliment my taste. Whiskey in my lemonade, cause I like the way it tastes. Best seats at the Pirates game, they let me run the base. Yeah, my time is like my money, cause I can't afford to waste. Wifey is a lawyer, take my date to my dates. Order steak by the plates, and in case after case, run my race at my pace, clear the grass of the snake.
Welcome back to another episode. Today we are discussing the spring breakout game before we get down to Florida. But first, we have some games to go over, Adam. We Thursday through Sunday, which we're recording today. It's a Sunday. 4 games, some good things to highlight, some not so good things to highlight.
As you mentioned in previous episodes, we're really not looking for results, right? I think Andrew Haney is a prime example for this. Didn't have a great outing this week again, but our friend Andrew Desson brought it up as he interviewed Haney after one of the games. He doesn't really have good spring trainings generally. This is something that he's used to, and point proven last year, I think he had a 6.4 ERA in spring training. It's a late signing. He's getting ramped up. So we're looking at stuff, right, Scott? We're looking at velo. Is it a tick down? Is it a tick up? Are they working on something? So again, I like how things are unfolding. There are a lot of positives to go into. I think maybe there's a couple of questions in the rotation towards the back end that we can discuss in terms of Bailey Falter. Where does Mike Burrows fall? Derek Shelton said this week they don't really see him in that long man role. They view him as a starter. Does he take a job over Bailey Falter? It depends on how these spring games go. But let's go to the offense real quick. Joey Bart has stayed hot throughout spring, which is so refreshing to see in a camp where we have Bart, Davis, Endy, Delay. And there's a ton of questions of where everybody's going to fall. You could put Delay out of that conversation in terms of a starting catching role, but who's going to get that number 2 spot? And while Bart has continued to show power, continued to show consistency at the plate, Endy Rodriguez has picked it up too.
Yep.
Endy collected 3 hits on Thursday. Saturday, he had another hit. Sunday, he had a hit. So he's getting more comfortable at the plate and he's ramping up. He barely played any baseball last year. We were kind of lucky to get him in games last year towards the end of the season. So a lot of good things here. Scott, anything from this last week of games that has stood out to you?
Yeah, there are some guys in the bullpen that have looked pretty solid, pretty consistent. I do want to highlight, I still don't know what is going to happen with Endy Rodriguez, if he's going to start in AAA or if he's going to be in the big leagues, because if he's in the big leagues, he's probably catcher 2. It doesn't sound like they want to play him at first base or anywhere else. That's what they said at the beginning of spring. So, his appearance at the plate, like we said, we don't focus too much on results, but his appearances at the plate have been very, very promising. Bullpen guys I want to highlight, though, are like Eddie Yean. Eddie Yean, to me, is a guy that's pushing for a spot and probably will be in Pittsburgh at some point this year, if not at opening day. I think Peter Strzelecki, guy we acquired in the offseason, he's been pretty solid. Ryan Baracki has looked good. I think Kyle Nicholas has looked good. I really like what I'm seeing from Kyle Nicholas. Tim Meza had one bad outing, but Tim Meza, for the most part, has been pretty solid. So that's something that I think everyone should be very optimistic about. Bednar has looked better as the spring has gone on. Holderman as well. I think the bullpen is going to be deep, and I think it's a part of this team that we're sleeping on right now.
Jared Jones.
Jones.
6 punchies the other day.
Yeah.
He's looked good, man. The velo looks nice. He looks like he's getting into that same mentality. It's funny. It's spring training. These games don't mean anything. But when you look at Jared Jones, anytime he steps on the bump, he's in mid-season form when it comes to his mentality, right? Which you'd love to see it from a guy like that who's going to be our number 2, number 3 guy going into the year. Sawinski hasn't had a bad spring. He's back in the leadoff role when Tommy Pham's not there. Is there a world where Jack Sawinski is on this opening day roster and playing a platoon with Tommy Pham out in left field? And has that increasingly gotten higher because Tommy Pham suffered a slight setback today?
With or without Tommy Pham, I'd be betting on it at this point. It seems like it's the route they're going to go. He's performed well in spring, but also like they're putting him in the leadoff role. They're very intentional with how they are playing Jack, and it seems like they really are pushing for him to make this opening day roster. I would bet on it at this point. I really would. Other than that, you got Josh Palacios. You have Nick York, who could possibly play some outfield. He's looked pretty solid. Billy Cook really hasn't hit much, but Billy Cook really can pick it in the outfield, and defensively, he would be your best outfielder. But at this point, I would say it's Tommy Pham, Jack Sawinski.
I believe Palacios is out of options.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that comes into play with him making the opening day roster, and just from a pure strategic roster construction standpoint, starting Sawinski in AAA, or even Sawinski on the roster, but also carrying Palacios as well. I would love to keep Palacios in this organization. That would suck.
Yeah.
Great team guy. I think there's still a lot of potential there, but it's a weird roster right now when it comes to us not knowing how this is going to exactly unfold week one.
Yeah.
Because as we've learned, and as everybody should know, your opening day roster means very little. Ryder Ryan was on the opening day roster last year.
Yep.
And then he wasn't, and then he was, and then he wasn't, and then he was, and then he wasn't, and then he was. So
hear me out. We
All
talk
right.
about Pham. If Pham's hurt, which I don't think he's hurt enough to miss opening day, what about G1 Bay?
Moving on.
The guy's batting 600, man. No, I'm kidding.
G1 Bay's
I had to say
good,
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
G1 Bay's had a good spring. I think that's kind of his deal. He's a great AAA player. There's no doubt about it. He tears it up in Indianapolis all the time. We're going to see G1 Bay at some point this year, on and off. But we have a lot more options now with outfielders. That was the thing with G1 Bay before. It's versatility. He played second base. He played center field. He played some left field a little bit. But now he's pretty much an outfielder at this point. And you have Billy Cook. You have Nick York, who can go play a corner. You have Tommy Pham, Jack Sawinski, Josh Palacios. So unless he's a guy who can be a pinch runner late in games, I don't buy it with G1 Bay. And he didn't even do a great job taking bags at the big league level last year, which is something I believe we talked about last week. We don't have to get into it too much today, but just being more aggressive and finding ways to put ourselves in scoring opportunities. This roster does have potential for that. Whether or not that's how they're going to strategically go about things, I don't know. My last note for game recaps, as I was watching some spring games this week, I kind of like Tommy Pham in the leadoff role when available, just because I know we've been kind of iffy on where Pham fits here. And, he does provide decent veteran leadership. And obviously he's been in those moments. He's been in the league for a long time. His plate discipline is by far, I think, the best on the team, up there with probably McCutchen.
Yeah.
Like his eye at the plate, he does not chase at all. And that's what you're looking for in a leadoff guy. He's older, so is he going to take a ton of bags in that leadoff spot? He's not going to be your traditional type of guy. I know you like that type of fit in the one spot, but get on base. Good things happen, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's why they're looking at Jack Sawinski. He's very almost too passive at the plate, but I think they see him in that Kyle Schwarber type role where he could start a game off with some thump, and he could also see his pitches. But Tommy Pham, I think, is a little bit more meticulous with his plate discipline. I think he's got more advanced feel for the plate in this strike zone. So I could see either of them leading off depending on who the starting pitcher is.
Going down the spring training this week. We'll be there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, come back Sunday. We'll be at the breakout game, which we're going to discuss here in a minute with Anthony Murphy. What are you looking for in spring training? Is there a player that you're specifically excited to see? Is there a minor leaguer at minor league camp that you want to get a good look at, or just the breakout game? I guess we'll get into that later, but let's stick to the 40 man right now.
Yeah.
Who are you keeping an eye out for? Who do you want to see either take that next step or get a closer look at?
I mean, I think my answer is going to stick with like, I'm looking at, I love Triolo. You know how I feel about Jared. He went 3 for 3 the other day. But Nick York and Billy Cook are two guys that I've been keeping my eye on because as it stands right now, I don't know if they're making the roster, but I think they have big roles on this team going forward. And I'm excited to see them in person. If I were to pick a guy at minor league camp, I know we're sick in the 40 man. I want to see Connor Griffin in person.
Of course.
How about you?
I think as we get closer to opening day, I really want to see David Bednar.
Okay. Yeah.
Because
for sure.
Derek Shelton went on Foul Territory a couple weeks ago, and they asked him, is David Bednar your closer? And he said, I don't think we're ready to say that yet. If David Bednar is not the closer, we have some issues here.
He's the closer.
He is the closer.
Yeah.
I know that's coach speak, right?
It's Justin Lawrence.
We've talked about having high leverage guys, but David Bednar is the closer, and he's had a healthy offseason. He's healthy right now. He's had ample time to ramp up. He hasn't had a terrible spring. How does he look going into the season? Because without him, the back end of the bullpen is very questionable, and this team could take a turn in a direction you don't want it to see go in. But with Bednar coming back to form, I really like this bullpen a lot.
Yeah. I think you've said it before in previous episode. This bullpen goes as Bednar goes, basically, and I think that's very true. I'm really buying into that.
Yeah. So excited to see Bednar. Excited to see Nicholas, Majinski, Holderman, those guys that are going to go 6, 7, 8, and then lead into the 9th inning. Hopefully, you have a lead at those points, but guys that are going to hold and eventually get a save. So, Scott, let's take a break here, and then we'll bring it back with Anthony Murphy.
Let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, reoccurring guest Anthony Murphy of Bucs on Deck, minor league contributor for DK Sports and the Pirates correspondent for Baseball America, joins us to preview the spring breakout game. Anthony, welcome back on the Bucko Banner.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me back.
Pumped to have you, man. Good timing because we're all heading down the spring training this week, and it's that time of the year where the spring breakout game is upon us. Scott and I discussed it a little bit last week, how excited we were last year, mainly because Paul Skeens. And I know we had the Orioles prospects, and it was our first look at him live in person, which it was a great experience. We could tell then he's the greatest pitcher alive. But looking at this roster, I'm more excited this year just because of the names that we didn't see last year, or the names that we saw last year that didn't play. Anthony Solometo wasn't in the game last year. I know he had a rough year this year, but I'd like to see a good bounce back. We got David Matoma, Xander Meath, and so on. I mean, obviously Connor Griffin. How do you like this roster going into this breakout game, and what are your expectations?
I'm excited. I mean, there's about, I'd say about close to half the roster. I think I still haven't seen like live in person. There's been quite a few guys I've had a chance to see. I got to see Bubba Chandler at the end of like his stay in Greensboro. Haven't seen Solometo yet. I saw Matoma, but like during like the complex games, like you could only sit from like the third baseline. So it was kind of hard to see too much of what was going on when he was pitching. So it would be nice to kind of get a better view of him throwing. Connor Griffin, obviously, and stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of exciting young players that I think maybe a lot of Pirates fans haven't heard of yet. So this would be a good opportunity for them to kind of get like their first glance of them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Connor Griffin too. He surprised us in big league camp.
Yeah.
Shows you how high they are on him, because I can't remember the last time the Pirates brought a prep kid to big league camp. So what did you see from him, and what do you expect from him this year? Like, do you think he's going to be at an affiliate at some point?
Yeah, I could see. I see him starting straight with Bradenton this year. I mean, like tomorrow was a little bit different because like he played a little bit at the end of his draft year, but like I mean, I'm sure they see him in like the same light, if not more. I mean, I talked to Justin Horowitz. He's the director of amateur scouting for the Pirates, and they feel like they got a face of the franchise type player with Connor Griffin, and we saw some of the tools there already in Major League Spring Training. So I'd expect him to go straight to Bradenton, and he's the kind of guy that you love in these kind of like showcase games, because really that's what they are. Because he's got the speed, he's got the power. So you're looking for the guys who can make like the flashy plays and stuff like that, and he's definitely one of the guys that can run into one and hit a home run or steal base or throw a guy out from center field if he's playing in the outfield, that kind of stuff. So,
if you were a betting man, is he a shortstop or an outfielder long term?
See, I think the great thing with him is that there isn't, as of like right now, it's eventually down the road you probably pick something there, but like the kid is just so talented right now that like you can see. It's not often you see someone who could legitimately play both like shortstop and center field. Me personally, like I think he even said it in an interview during camp that he feels like more natural. It's more natural for him in center field, and I kind of agree with that. I think like his tools are better suited for center, especially like long term. But I think he obviously has the arm because I think some people either don't know or like they forget. Like he was a legitimate pitching prospect too coming out of the draft. Like some people thought as a pitcher he could have been like a first round like talent kind of thing. Obviously, like the upside's more with the hitting.
Sure.
So, I he could play short. I just think everything just is more natural in center field. I think eventually, like my money would be on him in center field by the time he makes the majors.
Yeah, I think you run it out there at shortstop, let him be competitive, show off that athleticism, and then it'll easily translate to the outfield. I don't think he's going to have a hard time making that transition. But a name I'm really looking forward to watching is Xander Meath, because this guy is absolutely gross. He's a ways away from being a major league guy, obviously out of high school, but he saw some time at the end of last year in Bradenton, correct? And he has crazy east to west stuff. He can really gas it up. He gets a ton of spin. The characteristics on his fastball and secondaries is top tier. So what can you tell us about Xander Meath going into the breakout game, and then what to expect, how the Pirates handle him this season?
Well, I think as far as handling this year, I imagine that he starts back in Bradenton at least to begin the year. Get a little more work in there. And I could see him in Greensboro by the end of the year if everything kind of goes well. Meath is he's a fun. I got to see him in the complex again last year too. And like obviously the first thing since where you're sitting, the thing that stands out immediately is that arm slot. Like you really get a sense of like how far that arm drops down from looking from the side, and it creates like you mentioned with the characteristics. It creates one of the most unique fastballs out there. Like I went digging back through like Baseball Savant and tried to find like a legit comparison to him between like the extension and the shape, the break, the horizontal break. It's you can't really find anything comparable under the Statcast era.
Justin Masterson is one that pops in my head for some reason.
I can see that. Yeah.
I don't know why, but yeah, his stuff, and he's big too. He's like 6'5", 6'6", or something like that. Like we saw him down at Pirate City, and he's a big guy. He kind of gets, and Tanner Houck kind of has those characteristics a little bit in a way. But no, he's really exciting. Another guy from this draft class, I'm going to stick to this draft class, Wyatt Sanford. He's known for his glove. What can we expect from the bat?
I think, and he's another guy that I talked to Justin Horowitz about. They feel like the great thing with like Sanford is like because he's so young, they're like different ways that he can go about his development. They love his bat to ball skills. They think he's going to make like really good contact in pro ball. There's a question about like how much power and stuff. Like he has a like I haven't seen him in person yet, so like sometimes like the pictures and stuff like that, it's hard to fully judge. But it does look like he has a frame that maybe he can grow into some power and stuff like that. Obviously, maybe as a shortstop, you don't want it to grow into too much, but I mean, I see enough there to like he can fill out to. I mean, even if you're talking about like a 10 to 15 home run guy playing that kind of defense at shortstop, I mean, he's like in the top half. He'd be top half of the league when it comes to shortstops with those kind of numbers. If you can put the bat to ball consistently, walk into a few here and there, and then play above average. He's a special defender. That's the first thing. Like I tried to steer the conversation to talk about his bat. They still just wanted to bring up his glove. Like they feel he's a special defender there at shortstop. So,
is he ready to play there now? I'm just kidding. we need a shortstop now.
Defensively, maybe.
Yeah. Go ahead, Adam.
Catching used to be a problem in this system, and it seems like we have some guys with some pop in Omar Alfonso and Axiel Plaz. I think we saw Alfonso and Plaz in the game last year. How, like, what's the plan with these guys? I know Plaz plays some first base too, but are these legit prospects that we should be looking forward to in the next couple of years?
Well, Alfonso's a guy that I'm really high on. He makes a lot of contact. It's a really good blend of contact and power potential with him. He almost tripled his home run numbers from 2023 to 2024. Makes good contact. The exit velocity numbers are like for a catcher his age at the level well above average. He's probably like a above average exit velocity like power guy at the major league level already with the stuff he puts up. The catching, he needs some work on it. I talked to him at the end of the year last year, and he was like it's funny, and I like the self-awareness with it too. He mentioned how like the ABS, because he spent most of the year in Bradenton, there are times when the ABS kind of made him a little bit lazy when catching because he knows like it's just going to get called a certain way and stuff like that. So he once he got to Greensboro, having to kind of work on the framing and that kind of stuff and everything again. He has a really good arm. I think he threw out over 40% of base runners in his small sample size in Greensboro. It's like 30 to 35% for his career. He's on the bigger side, so there's a chance that he's probably like a first baseman. There's some platoon issues potentially because of he's left-handed. But I think him being a catcher or first baseman, I think you can kind of survive as a platoon guy longer if you're left-handed. So
right.
He's got that working for him. Plaz was interesting last year because he got off to a really bad start in the complex league. There's a lot of injuries at catcher in Bradenton, so they didn't have a choice. They needed a catcher, so they called him up, and then he just started hitting bombs. He had 15 home runs in like 70 some games. He played like almost half the amount of games and finished in the top 5 in home runs in the Florida State League at 18. He's another guy putting up good exit velocity numbers. There's some swing and miss that he's going to have to work on. Part of me wants to like accept. Well, he was still 18 playing in single A, so there's probably still a bit of an adjustment there for him. I would probably say that Plaz maybe has a better shot at sticking behind the plate than Alfonso. I think someone I know someone brought this up before on Twitter as like an Alejandro Kirk comp on there because they're both smaller frame, stockier guys that can hit for some power. So,
how about one of the follows that I really enjoy looking at on Twitter, and I think it's because you were retweeting them a lot. TJ Stats, the pitching stuff page. I mean, it's one of my favorite follows now. Speaking of Hunter Barca. Hunter Barca went from 2023 sitting like low 90s to now like he's at like around 95, hit 97.1 on the sinker the other day. I mean, is he someone, and I said this on our last episode, I think he's going to shoot up prospect list, like a lefty, hitting 97 with a sinker, and he just seems to be getting better and better every year. Do you think he has a chance of debuting this year or early next year?
I think I think that's funny. If you put him in a lot of other systems, I think the safe money is that he would debut this year, probably
Yeah.
easily. I think with the Pirates, with the kind of depth that they have right now, there's a chance that like his impact this year could be out of like the bullpen towards the end of the year, that kind of thing. I don't know if they make a trade, if they move another pitcher ahead of him, that can kind of slide him up and get him there. But yeah, the improvement. So I remember watching him when he returned from Tommy John and pitched a little bit in Bradenton. The slider looked good. The splitter was great. Like I put like a 60 grade on it. Like that pitch will, especially as a lefty against righties, he'll be able to fly up. He'll be able to move up the system. The fastball though, average 90. There wasn't much shape to it, wasn't much life to it. And then the following year, like he pitched in the breakout last year, and you saw a little bit of the jump. The shape looked a lot better on the fastball. We didn't get as much reliable, like available data as far as like the velocity. The one game that I do remember having it was like 93, 94 most of the game. But yeah, if he takes another jump forward with the fastball, with the velocity, the shape on it's already like above average, I'd say. So even if he was in that 93, 94 from the left side, I still really like that. I still like the success he can have. It really now is just staying healthy and logging more innings because it was a non-arm injury, but his season did get cut short last year due to an injury. So I think he finished around like 70, 80 innings total.
What about some of these young guys, specifically in the infield? We got Johnny Severino, who we brought over in that Carlos Santana trade. Donnie De Los Santos, who was I think our highest international signing. And then Tony Blanco Jr., who is an absolute monster of a human being.
Mm-hmm.
What do you expect out of these guys going to the season? Again, very far away, but for me personally, I need to see a huge step from De Los Santos because of just how they viewed him coming over here. But still a ton of time left. Is there promise going into this year? Is there something that they need to adjust in order to keep moving through the system?
Well, I'll give, as far as Yordani, I'll give him credit because he cut down it wasn't a good, like the last 2 years he's dominated the complex league. Was probably the best player on the field anytime he stepped on the field there. And then at the end of the year he moves up to Bradenton and he struggled. I will give him credit. Last year he did cut back on the strikeouts, so that he took like a nice little step forward with that. Yeah, that's really what it's going to come down to. He has to start making more contact and more quality contact too. I think I remember it was Fangraphs when they did their write up on him a couple years ago. They're talking about like his exit velocity numbers compared to his age, where like they had to create like a new category for it because it was so high or something like that. Just haven't seen that there with him in Bradenton. The exit velocity numbers aren't great. He's not making a lot of contact. He's a great fielder. He has a lot of speed. I think he stole like 30 some bases last year. So contact's going to be the big key
thing
for him.
Yeah.
So. Is Severino one of the most slept-on bats in the system? I feel like he's a guy I really like the swing, and I feel like that was a good return that they got for Carlos Santana at the deadline 2 years ago. For
a rental, I wouldn't say he's as slept on anymore because I think was it Baseball America had him ranked as like their 11th prospect in the Pirate system. Pipeline had him like top 15. I know we had him inside our top 15 on the site. I know we were all very high on him. The one thing that concerns me right now about Severino, obviously there's a little swing and miss when he got to Bradenton. The quality of contact wasn't great. But a lot of that too, he's still like teenager, so he could still grow into some power. So as that comes along, also too, I do think long term he's probably an outfielder. He probably, I don't think he sticks in the dirt. I probably think he moves to like left field or something like that. Which I mean, that's fine. That's not going to hurt his prospect ranking too much, kind of thing. But yeah, he's definitely a guy that like I'm really watching this year because if like the contact comes along, he starts making more, authoritative with the ball a little bit more. I think he can fly up even more. Like I said, I don't think he's as slept on anymore because most of the public, outlets are have him pretty up there and stuff like that. And it's kind of hard to crack the top 10 right now in the Pirates system with the pitching and like, Connor Griffin and that kind of stuff too. So I think for a guy who played what, like 20, 30 games at single A, I think that's pretty advanced kind of placement for him. So
Absolutely.
Tony Blanco Jr. is listed as a first baseman / outfielder. I have a hard time believing he fits in anywhere besides first base, given just the pure size of the human being. Mm-hmm. Is he pigeonholed over there or as a DH in the future?
I will say, when I saw him last year, and in a couple games I saw him play, I would probably put down that he was probably going to be a DH. Like, I'm not even sure if he won't touch the outfield. I'm not sure why they still have that listed. Some places still have him listed straight up as an outfielder. He'll never touch the outfield. One of the big things key for him going into this year was he was going to have to get in better shape. He wasn't playing every day down there, has dealt with some injury things the last couple of years. And Wilbur, he's the photographer, I guess you could say, on the site. He goes to Pirate City a lot. He got a picture of Blanco the other day, and it looks like he's slimmed down quite a bit. He looks like he's in some pretty good shape. So
he hits the ball hard. Tell you that much.
Yes, he hit one that was like 122 miles an hour off the bat last year in the complex, and then it was foul. And then like 2 pitches later, he won like 115 out of the park.
That'll play.
He's 6'7", 243 is what he's listed at from last year. So unbelievable size.
I might need to see that birth certificate. No.
Yeah.
Another guy that hits the ball hard who has crazy skill set is Jack Brannigan, in my opinion, because he's a guy that could also jump on a mound and probably throw upper 90s.
Yeah.
Strong arm from third base. He's a big dude. Adam and I stood next to him at Pirate Fest, and I didn't realize he's bigger than I thought he was. He's fast, has insane power. He seems like a 3 true outcome guy, though. Is that where he's trending right now? And if it doesn't work out, is there a potential that he becomes a Brick Ankiel or whatever? I don't know. Someone on the mound.
I think
that'd be the reverse. Sorry, right? Yeah.
Ankiel started as the pitcher. Brannigan, I think the thing that helps Brannigan out is he's a really good defender. The defense is going to be the thing that if he makes the majors, it's going to be because of the defense. What he does once he makes the majors is going to be how much the bat follows along. Like you said, there's some power there. I'll be interested to see how much of the power translates leaving Greensboro. He has speed. I think that was the thing that surprised him the most whenever I first watched him play, because you hear about the arm and the pitching, and you hear a little bit about the power, and then Baseball America had like a double plus runtime on him. So that just kind of came out of nowhere, and he finished like 1 home run short of a 2020 season a couple of years ago. Had like 18 and like 80 games last year. So yeah, he's a guy. It's going to be a big year for him. I'm sure he'll be starting AA.
I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up this name, Mitch Jebb. Anthony, let's spend a decent amount of time on Mitch Jebb here. Where does he fit on a field? I mean, the speed kills on the bases. He took 43 bags last year. Mm-hmm. As a guy who was in Greensboro, where does he fit in order to keep moving through the system, or is he just always going to be a utility type of player?
I think, and I think we've talked about it on the site, and I think we've kind of been banging the table on him making like the full-time move to center field, because a lot like with Connor Griffin, I'm not calling him Connor Griffin. I'm just saying the tools that Mitch Jebb does have translates better to center field than what he does in the infield. When I went to Greensboro last year, he played some games at short, played some games at second. Wasn't always pretty. In the outfield though, I was there before the game, talking to some of the players. He was out there catching fly balls, and it just looks natural out there for him. And I think it's just better for, he's a speed, contact over power guy. I think last year he with Greensboro being a little more hitter friendly, maybe he tried to sell out a little bit more at the beginning of the year. He said he made some changes to his swing that kind of helped him get back to his game, that kind of thing. So I think,
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Is there someone else that didn't make this roster that you maybe were surprised to not see on here? Maybe like a Levi Sterling, if we're talking about the prep guys that were drafted, or anyone else in the system that we're not talking about.
I think selfishly, I would have liked Levi Sterling to make the team just so I could see him pitch. Obviously, him not throwing it all after getting drafted, I haven't had a chance to see him yet. I'm sure I'll see him down in the complex when I go down there later in the year. But he's a guy I would have liked to see. I've always been high on someone like Alessandro Orcolani. I think like a one-inning outing would be fun to see him pitch, to see if he could dial it back up a little bit velocity-wise. I mean, there's probably quite a few guys on there, but still, probably like half the roster too, I still haven't had a chance to see in person. That's the kind of thing that I really was looking to do by making sure I'm down there for it, is getting added eyes on some of these guys that I've missed so far.
How about one of my last questions here, Anthony, there's some guys on here that I don't know much about. So maybe if you can give us a quick tidbit on some of these guys, like an Edward Florentino, Richard Ramirez behind the plate, even a Wilkin Ramos or Wilbur Dotel on the mound.
So we'll start with Edward Florentino. He was a Dominican Summer League All-Star last year. He's a guy. I'll have an article out on him on Tuesday. And I think he could be on the short list of potential breakout guys for this in the system. Put up really good exit velocity numbers last year for being a 17-year-old in the Dominican. Made good contact. I think he had 85% zone contact rate, going off of what Baseball America said. Walked more than he struck out. Played all three outfield positions. Most people think he's probably going to end up in the corners or in first base as he fills out. He had the highest fly ball rate in the system. So he's already. I think one thing that I've noticing more about the lower level guys is the biggest key to unlocking most of their stuff is being able to elevate the ball, and he's already showing signs of being able to do that. Naturally, with any Dominican kid coming stateside, there'll probably be some work adjusting to the breaking pitches and stuff like that. He probably doesn't see many quality of those down there. So that will kind of be key for him. But he's a guy that I'm probably he's at the top of my list that I'm excited to see him this year and hopefully this game.
Awesome. How about a Richard Ramirez behind the plate? Was he a Dominican guy as well?
I believe he's from the Dominican. He played in the Complex League last year. He had a game where he ended the ended 3 straight innings defensively with his arm. He threw out 2 runners with trying to steal, and then he picked off a guy at first with it. He has maybe a 70 grade arm, maybe even he threw out almost 50% of base runners last year in the Complex League, which is insane because a lot of pitchers aren't maybe as comfortable with holding runners at that point yet. So maybe they're working shorthanded and stuff like that. His arm is legitimately the best in the system right now. So still has obviously some stuff to work out there. Has a little power, some swing and miss issues, but his defense is going to carry him straight up the system.
Anthony, appreciate having you on here. Where can our listeners find all of your work?
Well, if you want to listen to me ramble about baseball constantly, I'm on Twitter at @Murphy88. Bucs on Debt Substack. We have daily posts about minor league, the prospects, all that stuff. Baseball America, DK Pittsburgh Sports. I contribute to both of those. I stay very busy and I watch a lot of baseball. So you can find me somewhere.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you down in Florida in about a week, Murph. I'm excited to talk about Stuff Plus with you and ramble about Johnny Severino and my infatuation with him. But until then, man, you have a good week and appreciate you coming on.
No problem, man. Anytime. Thanks for having me on.
Scotty, we are back. Great conversation with our friend Anthony Murphy. Go check out all of his stuff, his podcasts, his write-ups on all the minor leaguers. It's great to have all that info. Can't wait to see him down there. This will be our last Pirates podcast for the week before spring training, and then we will be recording every single day down in Bradenton. So excited for that grind to start. If you don't already, make sure you go follow us on YouTube, subscribe, like, leave a comment, share it, have a friend share it, and then have that friend share it. And then go on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, OnlyFans, at Bucko Banter. We're active, and we're only going to be more active as the season goes on. Finally, if you're in Pittsburgh and you go to a lot of games, Scott, what do you wear to games?
Bucko Banner gear, man. What else would I wear?
Right. And there's something for everybody on the site, of course, you'd think.
Yeah. And there'll probably be more coming soon, you know.
Got some ideas cooking and some more stuff that we are partnering with on Just Baseball. So we're going to be announcing some exciting news soon for us to have more connection with fans, right, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely.
More resources and just for everybody to gain more baseball knowledge. So excited to make that announcement coming up soon. But we will see everybody in spring training. And until then, raise it.
Raise it, baby.
Best seats at the Pirates game, they let me run the base. Yeah, my time is like my money, cause I can't afford to waste. Wifey is a lawyer, take my date to my dates, or the steak by the plates and